I'd like to call the Monday, June 10th, 2024, regular meeting of the Jersey Shore Area School District Board of School Directors to order. Can I have a roll call, please? Mr. Enders.
Mr. Allen.
Present.
Mr. Brungard. Here. Ms. Calhoun.
Here.
Ms. Edwards.
Here.
Mr. McDonald.
Here.
Peters.
Here.
Mr. Furman.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Ms. Hamlin.
Here.
All 9 members present.
Thank you. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Ulmer.
I'm going to recognize Mr. Mincer and Coach Fox, who are here with some of our spring sports athletes. They're going to talk briefly about these athletes, and then I'm going to ask the athletes to give the pledge.
So we have Anna Sick, who broke the long-time 400-meter record at the school. And we have Olivia Potts, who is a district champion and a state qualifier in the discus. And we have Zach Kendall, who won the district championship and would qualify for state 300 hurdles and also broke a school record this year.
And Mr. Menser, nobody heard you online. You need to go to the mic.
Oh, okay. So we have Anna Sick, who was our 400 record breaker this year. Olivia Spots, who was a district champion and a state qualifier in the discus. And Zach Kendall, who also broke a record in the 300 intermediate hurdles, district champion and a state qualifier.
Mr. Fox, do you have anything you'd like to add?
We're all juniors. We're all coming back.
That's nice.
Go ahead. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have something for all of you, and then I'll have you turn around so Mr. Mincer can get your picture. Thank you so much. Good job. Make sure your parents get pictures, too.
Next, we will have communications. Dr. Ulmer.
I have nothing under communications this evening.
Okay. Moving on to the President's report. Prior to tonight's meeting, we had an executive session where we discussed legal and personnel.
Please also add on the record, Mr. Enders, that Dr. Issenbach gave her annual required safety and security report.
Thank you. Under the board representative and committee reports, Mr. Broomgard, do you have anything from the Buildings and Grounds Committee?
I'm actually going to pass out 2 documents to the board that when we had our Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting, we had a discussion about the pathways to selling any property that the district owns that the board would be interested in selling. And there are 2 things coming around. The first one that there's 2 things. One is for the Avis property that we discussed. One is for the Salisbury property that we discussed. And essentially what this is in front of you to review, I'm really just passing this out to review for future conversation, is the surveyor telling you what the pathway is to lotting off and being able to sell that property. He gives you a step-by-step with tasks that are numbered and showing you what you would have to do as a school board to get that ready for sale. In addition, I will call your attention to last week, I communicated in your update from Mr. Kenyon legally what the options are to sell property. He spelled those out for you as well. So what you have in front of you from the surveyor is the step-by-step what you'd have to do to get ready. And then you have the document from Mr. Kenyon that says what your options are in terms of the actual sale. So those are just for information. You have anything you want to add, Mr. Broomberg?
You know, maybe I'd like to have maybe the committee go take a look at these lots, whatever they are. I understand that in reading the survey here that keep it under 5 lots, I believe. It's called a minor subdivision. If you go over that, then I believe you need an engineer to lay out roads, septic and electric and everything else. So if you keep it as a minor subdivision, it's a lot less expensive. So maybe the committee, we could set something up and go take a look at exactly what we're looking at sometime in the near future.
Thank you. That's everything for me.
Anything under your superintendent report?
The only thing that I want to, again, informational for the board. A couple weeks ago, I had distributed electronically a copy of a report that I generated with the help of Mr. Wall and Mr. Enders, looking at cost-saving strategies and the things that have been done historically from a research report that PASBO put together. I did distribute that electronically, but I'm also distributing it tonight in print so that you have a printed copy of it. Again, this is purely for information, so the board has a comprehensive look at what we've already done. And I did, if you notice on page 1, I summarized the findings, but I also gave you some ideas of things we're going to continue to look at in the future for future cost savings. Again, distributed electronically, but I'm giving you a hard copy report tonight so that you have it.
Is this tied into the hunt study?
No, this is purely looking at total
administrative?
operational systems across the entire district.
Okay.
Any other questions about that report? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ulmer. Next, we will have courtesy of the floor for those of you who have signed up. First person is Mr. Bob Fox. What we had planned on doing, Mr. Fox, and for those of you that are in the audience, those that would like to speak during this particular courtesy of the floor, we have asked if you can just state before you speak, before your 3 minutes begins, what it is you would like to address under what is you plan on speaking on the agenda this evening.
So you're telling me what I wrote on the paper there, correct?
Well, you just have, if you can be a specific. Personnel, is it
I believe it was
1G?
G and H.
G and H.
1G and H.
Okay, and then 1B?
And
Under
then
finance.
Under finance, yes, 1B, the budget, I believe, for this coming school year, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. If you could just state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bob Fox, and I'm from beautiful Pine Creek Township, 1025 Creekside Lane. First of all, before I get to those other things, I'd like to thank the board members that were able to attend graduation on Saturday. I think it's great that you guys were able to represent the board and be there. First thing that I had a question about that's on the agenda is has in there that Mr. Enders is getting a 3% raise and Dr. Ozenbach is getting a 2.5% raise. I was just wondering if in the presentation, it'll say what their new salaries will be, just so that the public knows. And under the budget, if I'm reading this right, I mean, I'm not a certified public accountant or anything, so it's kind of hard to read all those numbers. It seems like our total expenditures are a little bit higher than our total revenue by about $287,000. So we have a deficit in our budget of $287,000, which I think we're at a good place because of that, because if I remember correctly, Mr. Enders had said at a board meeting or two ago that 3 or 4 out of the last 5 years, our budget had a deficit, but our audit had a surplus. I could be wrong. I think we're in a good place with this deficit. I think we're keeping our expenditures in check because, again, if I remember correctly, in Mr. Wall's Building and Grounds presentation, he said that his budget was about $350,000 higher due to increases in utilities. And I also believe that, I'm not sure if it's his budget or another budget, but we had budgeted around $40,000 or $50,000 for a new delivery van. And that's something that won't be a recurring expense. I'm just hoping with the delivery van that it's like a 15-passenger van that could have dual purpose where not only help delivering things to the schools, but also to transport students when we don't have a lot of kids going to sporting events or musical type things. Again, I think we're in a good spot here. Again, if I'm looking through the budget that was online correctly, it said we'll have a $9.5 million in the committed, assigned, unassigned, and budgetary reserve. And so 9.5 million, that's a whole lot of money to have in your rainy day fund when your deficit is only $287,000. Because of these numbers, personally, I feel we don't have to take any drastic financial savings for this school year or the next school year because I think financially we are in an excellent place for our school district. And just to sum it up, as always, because of how our expenditures and revenues are, and we're all in check with the monies that we have, I think it's a great day to be a Bulldog, as always. Thank you very much.
Next is Dr. Lily Langlois. Yep, no problem. And then there's, next will be Justin Wall.
Hello, Justin Wall, Anthony Township. Going to be speaking on your final budget that you'll be voting on. So I trust that the last meeting I'd sent you some attachments to your email. I just wanted to encourage you, make sure you take a look at those. I trust that you did. That pointed out something similar that was mentioned, which is if you go back the previous 4 to 8 years, there's a projected deficit budget. I believe in 2017, a projected of 600,000 deficit, 18, 110,000 deficit, 19, 324,000 deficit, 2020, $1 million deficit, 2021, an $800,000 deficit, 2022 back to 1.3 million projected deficit, 2023, 490,000 deficit. Some of those surpluses ended up in the millions, revenues coming in higher than expenditures. So though we also get a lot of attention in the beginning of the school year. The newspapers like to get out there with some headlines about deficits. Other districts do present deficits the way we do, but not all. And so we get a lot of attention for that, but then the newspapers down there with Pat Crosley and things, they kind of fall asleep at the end of the fiscal year when the surpluses come in. And it leaves our community kind of with sometimes a misrepresentation of kind of how the year ends with how it begins. Doesn't always give you a lot of credit for the work you put in. So I just encourage you to make sure you review that and know that, like I encouraged you last year or last week or two, to make sure you give yourself a fiscal year before you make a lot of drastic decisions, because it does take a while to get to know the ins and outs of the budget. For instance, I have just learned that the budgetary reserve is for anything that might pop up. One thing that has not been discussed, and I've been to a lot of meetings, is for the district to look into like a local bank, Muncie Bank, other banks that may give you a line of credit. This is done in other districts. For instance, East Lycoming has up to a $5 million line of credit, which they can draw. That does not have the expensive fees for lawyers and such that like to pull off percentages, and you end up paying hundreds of thousands for pulling bonds. But you can actually get yourself a line of credit that you can draw at a low fee. It's a lot of negotiating stance for you. You can get a better rate than I could if I went there. And so when things come up, or you need to get yourself, say, 5 years spending minimum amount of money, but you still want to make sure you can put the heat on, that's a good way that you can do that. So I encourage you, as you go through your fiscal process, is to look into that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Okay, next we will move on to personnel. Action to approve items A through W. Thank you. And we're going to take item A separately and vote on that separately, as well as G and H will be a roll call vote. Do I have a motion, please?
A motion.
Second.
Any questions or concerns? Okay, hearing none, we're going to do letter A first. Mr. Enders?
Letter A?
Yes.
You want to do a roll call on it?
Not necessarily. We'll just vote on letter A as a board together. All those in favor? Say aye. All those opposed, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion fails. Next, we will have a roll call, please, on letter G.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Greenberg? Yes. Calhoun?
No.
Edwards?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Kernan?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Semler?
Yes. The motion passes 8-1. Next will be letter H. A roll call, please, Mr. Enders.
Allen?
Yes.
Greenberg? Yes. Calhoun?
This again is a no, and I do not want it to be thought that this is because of performance or my disregard for either of you and what you do here. It is simply the fact that if we are going to cut things from our student body, which we are here to educate, I can't approve such high praises either. It's a no.
Edwards?
This is not personal? No.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Semler?
Yes. That's okay. Motion passes 7-2. All right. Next, it'll be B through F and I through W. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Next, under curriculum and instruction, we have items A through D. May I have a motion, please?
I'll motion.
So moved. Ready?
Mr. Allen was first. That's it. Are you?
Are you okay with being second?
Thank you, Mr. Brungard. Are there any questions or concerns? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. There is nothing under buildings and grounds. Under finance, may I have a motion to approve items A through O with A and B being separate roll call votes?
I'm okay with that just being clerical.
I apologize, but I didn't catch that clerical.
We're doing 2024,
3, 4.
2025 budgets.
I missed that.
24, 25.
Thank you for correcting that. Back motion again?
Nobody's motion.
Nobody action, yeah. So can I have a motion, please? Still the same, A and B being roll called.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or concerns? Absolutely.
I have a question.
Mr. Brungard,
I
hang on.
kind of lost track of things here.
Ben Enders is going to address a couple
Homestead Act.
things.
Go ahead, what's your question?
The Homestead Farmstead Act, is that, what does that amount to? Is that increased? I'm sorry. I thought I had turned off. What does that amount to money-wise?
About dollar-wise?
Dollar-wise?
About $377
Per
per
tax?
exclusion. Some parcels can have both exclusions on it.
What is that increased over? Is this the first time it's been increased?
No,
No?
it was increased about 3 years ago.
It was increased last year a little bit.
It's been, yes, there's been slight increases year over year. There's been 1 or 2 slight decreases. But there was a large increase about 3 years ago. There's a large increase this year.
But what is, tell me what the increase was this year from last year? Do you know offhand?
Approximately about $250,000.
You're talking individual.
Yeah, I was.
He was talking
Oh.
individual.
Sorry, it was about $50.
Okay.
Is that date right on that one?
No, we changed that to 2024.
Well, I haven't only heard the A and B. So what is it supposed to be? 24?
2024.
Is that what it's supposed to be?
So I just wanted to let you know your final numbers after Mr. Fox stole my deal. Your budgeted revenue is just over $47.1 billion. Your budget expenditures are just over $47.4 million. You have a $286,796 deficit. I think at the last meeting I presented about $315,000 deficit. The 2 major changes was the tax increase that you voted on last meeting. That's $1.83 That's hitting on Clinton County side. Lycoming County is at 1.79%. The other savings that you realize is later on in finance, basically from H through N is the insurance package. Overall, the insurance package as itself went down $8,700. You had more of an impact on your budget because I had projected a 10% increase across the board on everything. So that was the other big piece of the pie that kind of changed. For the new board members, what you're seeing on letter G, as far as the votes, these are pretty much your typical first meeting of June votes, the final budget, the final tax resolution, and then the final homestead farmstead, and then final insurance package. You'll see two things in there, letter F and letter G. These are recurring items year over year. These are required for the audit purposes. If you, once you get your final audit, want to do any type of transfers or commitments, you have to do this resolution in order to do that and backdate it. So these are standard items on this meeting as well. This is the first piece of the pie of you closing the books.
Ben, on letter N, what generates that? I mean, that's your big one.
My question also,
Letter N,
Yeah, workman's comp.
the reduction.
what rate changed? And they also look historical years, and we had one, they look at a 3-year look back, and we had 1 year fall off and get replaced with a better year as far as claims. Your property insurance, which did go up, is primarily all rate, and your school board liability is some experience and some rate. No, those two items are both, Ms. Calhoun's referencing G, those are for the 23-24 fiscal year.
Are there any other questions or concerns?
Review A, the tax rates. What do you, like what the rates will be? So Clinton County will be millage rate of 14.0064. Like I said earlier, that's the 1.83% increase. Lycoming County is 18.7178. That is a 1.79% increase.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Enders, could you give us a roll call, please, for letter A?
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Bringard,
Yes.
Calhoun,
No.
Edwards.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Mr. Furman,
No.
Thomas,
Yes.
Stenler,
Yes.
passes 7.
Next, we will vote on letter B. A roll call, please, Mr. Enders.
Mr. Allen, Bringard,
Yes.
Calhoun,
No.
Ms. Edwards. Yes. Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Herman,
No.
Thomas,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
passes.
Thank you, Mr. Enders. We will now vote on C through O. Is it O? O. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say aye. Motion passes. Under miscellaneous, items to approve, A through M. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. There's nothing under old business. Next, we will have courtesy of the floor. Anyone wishing to speak? Dr. Lily Langlois, I think you had signed up. We'll let you go first.
Hi, my name is Dr. Lily Langlois, Cummings Township. I'm going over the building and grounds meeting and revelations last meeting, and I want to update the board, especially the new board members, on the decision that was voted on in April of last year, April 24th, when they voted for scenario C to keep Salatiesburg open and rebalance the class sizes, instead of scenario A, which is to close Salatiesburg. All of the numbers here come from the Hunt study that was published on your website. So if you look on the back of your paper, you can just, that's my citation, so you know where my numbers come from. And I simply updated it with this year's enrollment. And to guide you for the very top line, I have the 3 different elementary schools, and I have the first bracket is enrollment. So this is important because we want to keep our class sizes reasonable. And as you close buildings and there's fewer rooms to put students, then you have larger class sizes, and that's more difficult for teachers to operate in. And that is why Jersey Shore Elementary School teachers were really advocating to rebalance the class sizes. So the previous school year, between the real, is in green, and then in blue is the current school year. Pink is the column you should pay attention to because that's the difference between the two. So when you voted last year on scenario C, basically 100 students were removed from, yes, I intended for every board member to get, if you could pass that along, please. So every board member would get one. So you could follow the numbers I'm giving you on that sheet right there. Okay. So 100 students were removed from JSE into the other elementary schools. So the average class size for JSE went down by almost 4 students per class. That is a benefit to round them out. Now it's ironically Avis that has the currently largest class size. And going by the Hunt study numbers, with the actual number of rooms and the average class size is not to go over 23, you can see that we have met those targets. Now, if the board chooses to close Salatiesburg, you can see at the bottom column, those bottom rows show numbers if you close Salatiesburg and what the building capacity is. So for Avis, if you use the very last room, which right now is occupied, it's not just some empty room that you can just shove 23 students in, your capacity is now going to have only 6 students left in that building. JSE, now you're going to transfer 100 students into that because you're closing Salatiesburg. You're going to be over capacity by approximately 27 spaces. That's based on this year's enrollment. So remember, we don't want to move children around like furniture because they don't take it well. Remember, every year, especially since COVID, the number of IEPs go up. That's an increased expense to our district. And you also have to take in consideration that most buildings don't want beyond 90% capacity. We have almost 300 students in charter school and homeschools, so we need to give them room if they choose to come back. Thank you.
Thank you. Just beat me to the gavel.
All right, Bob Fox from, yet again, beautiful Pine Creek Township. Just wanted to, I don't know if Dr. Ulmer or Mr. Enders has more information than what I have on the school funding bill. I believe it passed the Pennsylvania House, so it still has to go through the Senate yet. And I think it was like about a $1 billion increase for public education. And it had like 4 different areas where some schools could get money, and I didn't know if we fell in any of these categories, if you're able to inform us on whether we do or not. One of them is if you spent $13,704 or less per student, there would be money for those districts. Also, if your local tax effort is in the top 34% of all school districts, there is money in that bill for those districts. There's also money for adequacy supplemental funds to increase minimum salaries for the Education Association to $60,000, which I know our starting salary is lower than that. And there's also money for student supports to assist in academic and behavioral needs, improve educational outcomes, and to establish healthy learning systems. And my first question was, I didn't know if we would qualify for any of those, or if you haven't looked into that yet.
My short answer is I got an email today with a link to look at a document and see what we would potentially qualify for if it passed. The link would not work for me, so I reached out to try and get a new version. Have not heard back yet, so I can't answer that right now.
Okay,
I tried.
fair enough, thank you. Next question I had was, I know Ben had talked about the insurance rates and how overall they had decreased. I just didn't know if we shopped around for insurance rates or not. I know we've gotten them from the Motor Agency for a long time. I know personally, if I shop around for a home and auto, you can get it cheaper at some places. I didn't know if we did that, if that was another cost savings avenue we could do.
The broker's modern, the broker does shop it, quote it out.
So it wouldn't matter which broker you went to, it would still basically be the same thing.
You could brokers, but the brokers are using
Okay,
something.
all right, I didn't know.
One of our neighboring districts, broker RFP.
Okay. All right, that was all. Again, thank you very much for all you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Good evening. My name is Matt Craw, Anthony Township. I just had a couple questions. When is the last time the district has had a bond rating? Like a bond rating when we went to a bank, got scored, got graded financially. Do you know, Mr. Enders, when we were last rated for a bond?
The last refinancing.
Got refinances. Did we get graded financially?
Plus.
A+, which is really good, correct? Okay. So we're in good financial standing according to the banks and going forward. So it seems like the board's doing a great job of keeping the budgetary funds down. $287,000 deficit is not that much of a deficit when you're talking the amount of money that is going out from this district. Is it correct too that those bonds that are currently out will be done in 2030? So that financial obligation will be settled in 2030. So then we could, already an A+ standing, could requalify for more bonds if needed. Is that correct? Whenever. And we still have that good grading, so that's a good thing. I also wanted to ask too that the board just look into every possible option. As far as if we're looking to save money, look into every option. One option is this building. Over half the districts in Lycoming County have admin in the school. I know it is an inconvenience to admin to be within the schools. I get that, it's a distraction, but it's also a huge distraction to add 3 more kids to a classroom. So keep that in mind too. We can house our board meetings in auditoriums. Administration can be held within other buildings. Again, over half of the districts in Lycoming County have administration within the school buildings. I also wanted to ask too, has a committee been developed or proceeded to go forward with our outgoing cost of charter school? We're spending $114,000 a month alone just to go to Sugar Valley Charter and over $1 million a year to go to other charters. Is there a committee or anyone working on see about retention or regaining some of those students back to our home school district?
We have an employee that is actually part of her job description.
Perfect, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we're going down every avenue we can here to bring those students back to our home district and bring that money back to those students and the other students as well. Hopefully some of the other acts goes through that will help improve that. You asked my other question, we got an answer for that. So I just want to say thank you to the board for holding the line down and keeping our budget where it is. That deficit is not that big of a deficit. Keep going forward and looking at other avenues to save money without closing schools. Closing schools has a huge educational impact on the community and on the students. So please look into that as you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to adjourn the meeting where we will be having an executive session following this meeting this evening for legal and personnel. But no further action will be taken.